Welcome to Motherland Origins, where we tell honest stories of Africa. When was the last time you gave some serious thought to the buildings around you? Why are they built the way they are? What thought processes went into the designs of the buildings, the materials used for construction, and the manner in which space has been utilized within confines? Who was it designed for? Architecture isn't just about buildings. It is one of the most visible and enduring expressions of a people's culture. It quietly encodes how a society thinks, lives, and relates to the world around it. When you look closely, you're not just seeing walls and roofs, you're seeing values made physical. Architecture should embed environmental knowledge, shape social behavior, carry symbolism and identity, and preserve history. Any form of architecture that ignores local culture is likely to erase identity, create uncomfortable living environments, and disconnect people from their heritage. African architecture was diverse. It was shaped by climate, available materials, social structures, and spiritual beliefs. It wasn't a single style, but a spectrum of highly adapted building traditions across regions. A practical way of understanding it is moving region by region, then drawing out common principles and their relevance to modern architecture. In West Africa, typically the Sahel and forest zones, the use of earth-based materials such as mud brick, as well as rammed earth was common. Buildings in this region were usually thick-walled and flat-roofed. These provided structural stability and thermal insulation against heat. They featured compounds and courtyards with carved wooden posts and symbolic decoration. The architecture in this region primarily served functionality and symbolism by helping deal with climate-related challenges while also indicating status and spirituality. An iconic example of West African architecture is the Great Mosque of Djenné, the largest adobe brick building in the world, built in 1907 and still standing till date. In North Africa, the Maghreb and Nile valleys in particular, architecture was largely influenced by Mediterranean and Islamic design. Stones, bricks, and plaster were generally used as building materials. Features of this architecture included inner courtyards for privacy and ventilation, as well as arches, domes, and geometric tile work. Architecture in ancient Egypt was particularly known for monumental stone structures, such as the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was also marked for its precise alignment, durability, and symbolic cosmology. North African architecture placed an emphasis on permanence, geometry, and climate-sensitive design. East African architecture varied slightly across the regions. In the Swahili coast and highlands, coral stone and limestone were commonly used, while the buildings featured intricate carved doors, vaulted roofs, sunken courts, indoor plumbing and drainage, baths, and decorative niches. The influence of trade with the Arabs, Persians, and Indians is a prominent feature of architecture in East Africa. Inland, the architecture featured circular huts with thatched roofs, which are efficient for rain runoff. East African architecture is typically seen as a blend of global influence and local adaptation. In Central Africa, particularly the rainforest regions, the architecture was seen as temporary. Buildings were usually lightweight temporary structures built using wood, leaves, and vines. The buildings were typically dome-shaped huts that could be easily assembled and disassembled. Architecture in this region primarily reflected mobility and ecological harmony. In Southern Africa, stone, earth, and thatch or wood were used in combinations very commonly. Architecture from Great Zimbabwe, existing from the 11th to 15th centuries, stand out with massive dry stone walls which used no mortar, enclosures, conical towers, and had a citadel-like scale, making it unusual in its monumentality. Other styles included rondavels, which were cylindrical huts with conical thatched roofs, kraals, cattle enclosures with perimeter huts for defense, cobbled stone shelters, and variants with domes or verandas. Stone-walled settlements marked social hierarchies. Southern African architecture was a reflection of the society's engineering skill, as well as the importance placed on social organization. Despite the differences in architecture across various regions on the continent, certain principles held true. Architecture in Africa was responsive to climate, used local materials, featured community centered designs, often used symbolism while indicating spirituality, and ultimately remained adaptable. Consequently, this meant that architecture was comfortable, cost efficient, depicted cultural identity, was durable and more easily maintained, and environmentally sustainable. Unfortunately, Western influence has meant a general departure from architecture that is compatible with the African culture and context. A return to culturally rooted architecture would build pride and continuity, improve functionality, and strengthen communal bonds. African architecture wasn't primitive, it was intelligent design rooted in environment, culture, and sustainability. Ironically, many of its principles align with what modern architecture is now rediscovering under terms like green building and bioclimatic design. Architecture matters because it sits at the intersection of environment, identity, memory, and daily life. It is culture you can walk through, live inside, and pass on. If you enjoyed this episode of Motherland Origins, make sure to like and share our videos while subscribing to our various social media platforms. Thank you for watching. See you soon.